House of the Dead is a special series. I mean, I think we can all remember seeing a House of the Dead cabinet in the arcades and absolutely crapping ourselves because they were all terrifying. And I'm in such a big House of the Dead mood because House of the Dead 2 came out on the Switch and PC, the remake. It's just not good. It's fun to play, but by God, is it ugly. And it just doesn't do the legacy of this series any justice. And House of the Dead as a series just deserves better, and this is a retro channel and I have a Wii and I have an absolute monstrosity of a CRT. So I went out and I bought House of the Dead 2 and 3 Returns and House of the Dead Overkill, and the Wii is such an amazing place to play light gun shooters. So hit me with your favorite memories of the House of the Dead games. It doesn't matter which ones they are, if they're in the arcade, if they're on the Wii, if it's Typing of the Dead, whatever it is, because that's what we like to share around here. And subscribe to the channel if you're into this sort of retro stuff.
No! No! No!
Thank you.
So since I have it physically, here it is. It has the ugly CEX sticker. It was €20. And on the back of the box, it has normal back of the box, but look, it has the Wii Zapper. Now, unfortunately, I do not have the Wii Zapper, and it is something that I would like to have. I'd imagine it's probably just more of a gimmick, and using the Wii pointer probably is just, you know, a better way to play. But one thing about playing House of the Dead on the Wii is that I never gave the Wii Remote enough credit for what it can do. The Wii Remote for light gun shooters is just below playing on an actual light gun, because we all love that feeling of pointing the gun, shooting with the recoil when you're in an arcade. Now, you can't really get that experience, I don't think, at home. Maybe the Sin light gun has one with recoil, but I have the gun cons on the PS2. It's a great way to play it, but obviously you need a CRT for a light gun to work. Plus, you need a PS2, and then you also need that really expensive cable that goes in the back of the PS2 and into the CRT. It's an absolute nightmare trying to find them, but when you're playing something like Time Crisis on a CRT at home, it really is that good, especially because I have a 29-inch 50 kg CRT over there, so playing light gun games on that is fantastic. But a step below that is playing light gun games with a Wii Remote, because the Wii Remote is really accurate, and if anything, the Wii Remote probably makes these games a bit easier because you have the reticle on the screen. Because with light guns, they will rarely be 100% calibrated. I mean, half of the time, if you go into an arcade now and there is a light gun game or a modern light gun game, or even the older ones, they're probably not calibrated. Odds are, one of the guns probably doesn't even work, because that seems to happen fairly often. So you always almost have to shoot the practice shot to see where your gun is actually aiming and then adjust your aim accordingly. So when it comes to fighting the bosses that zip around the screen, which, you know, obviously these games are infamous for, they're probably harder. But here on the Wii, because you have the reticle, you can actually see where you're aiming before you shoot. And even the Wii's rumble is really violent and makes a noise, so it actually does have a nice bit of feedback on it when you're shooting. And also, just mashing the B button is really easy, so you can have a really good trigger finger when you're playing them. Now, I do have the manual for House of the Dead 2 and 3, and it's written as if it's G's files, and I was kind of hoping that in here there would be the boss pictures with the weak points like it is in the game, but they're not there. It's just a very typical manual, but I mean, it's cool to have. And House of the Dead 2 is the arcade House of the Dead game that I have the least experience with. Yes, I maybe played it once or twice. I dabbled in Typing of the Dead a while ago, but other than that, I never really played it. And I think realistically the reason is because the only cabinet I can remember for House of the Dead 2 is that it was a sit-in cabinet. So already House of the Dead 1 traumatized me. I still love playing it, but by God, I had nightmares for weeks after playing that. And then the fact that to play House of the Dead 2, I would have had to sit in a booth, you're enclosed, it's dark, the noises are scary, the zombies are scary. I just think I've maybe played it once or twice when I was a kid and said, look, I'm done. That's fine by me. But now playing House of the Dead 2 on the Wii, I think even though I still prefer House of the Dead 1 because of nostalgia, I think House of the Dead 2 is the best of the games that I have played, because it has everything from alternate routes, secret collectibles to find, extra weapons, which I didn't even realize were in the original version. I thought they were only brought into the Switch version, but no, the extra weapons are in the original version. And it's overall just a great experience with boss fights that, honestly, yes, they do have some problems, you know, the typical arcade where you just want to drain the money out of your pockets. But I think House of the Dead 2 has the best collection of bosses, because if you go to fighting the first boss and there's the flying imp flying around, on the Wii version, he's actually pretty easy to hit, and then on the Switch version, they just made him almost impossible, and they give you like half a second to shoot him. But he is relatively easy to hit, so even the more frustrating side of it, it's not too big of a problem. And then when you get to the big giant lizard guy, he is probably my favorite boss of House of the Dead 1, 2, 3, and Overkill, because he's really readable, and I guess the only sort of bullshit part is when the piranhas are also coming at you, so you have a smaller window to shoot, but even still, he's very manageable. And then you get to the chainsaw guy in the Colosseum, and again, just a manageable boss. I think the only sort of hard part about him is when he's above you and he jumps down. The window to hit him there is very difficult. And it's the same with the snake or the hydra boss, whatever you call it. I actually don't know the name of it. It's still very manageable, and that one is quite easy. But the final two bosses do just get into House of the Dead. We are going to zip around the screen. You have to shoot my leg, or you have to shoot 7 projectiles coming at you, and you only have however many bullets in a mag. And they are kind of bullshit. But on the Wii version, when you have the extra credits and the extra lives, it's just a very manageable game. What I love, and it feels like that as you go along in the series, they become less and less about gotcha moments where you'll open a door, an enemy will jump out, or an enemy will jump down from the ceiling, because it feels like House of the Dead 1 had more of them than 2, and then it feels like House of the Dead 2 had more of them than 3. So it kind of becomes less about, we just want to absolutely destroy your pockets and take all your quarters out of your pockets and give you loads of crap that you can't really prepare for. And it even goes as far as in the Wii version of House of the Dead 2, specifically there was one moment where an NPC is dangling from a railing and there's a zombie above her, and if you kill the zombie, she drops into a bin. And then the cutscene starts where she says, "Oh, thank you for saving me." But then her finger comes up and points towards the door because another zombie breaks out, and it's like, that is really cool. And if you had a system like that in all of these sort of old arcade shooters, it would alleviate so much of those arcade problems. And that was just one little example. I'm not sure if any NPCs do that later, but that is something that I noticed. And of course, with all of these games, the cutscenes are terrible. The voice acting is absolutely awful. Like when you see Goldman in the Colosseum, it is one of the funniest things I have ever seen.
People of the AMS, I am Goldman. I don't care if you people try to get in my way or not. In time you'll find out who's right. This is a present from me to you.
And it makes these rather boring, almost completely useless story just so entertaining, and it holds up so well today. And while we're talking about the voice acting, where did the line "don't come" from in a lot of these old Japanese games? Because I'm pretty sure it's in Resident Evil as well, if I remember correctly. And it's in a lot of the House of the Dead games. Is that a bad translation from Japanese? Maybe they only translated the game and didn't localize it, and that's almost just a direct translation of some Japanese phrase. I don't know, but when an NPC runs across and there's a zombie chasing her, just like, "Don't come," it just fucking makes you laugh so much. It's absolutely ridiculous how these stories are written, how the dialogue is delivered, but it just adds to the charm so much.
We can't let everyone's death be in vain. Hurry!
And speaking of charm, that brings me on to House of the Dead 3. And the reason why I say charm, which is probably a weird phrase to use for this sort of like grungy, gritty, horror light gun shooter, is the actual arcade machine has shotguns. And playing the game in an arcade with the shotgun, cocking it back to reload and shooting is the best experience of any of the House of the Dead games in the arcade. Because even if you go into House of the Dead 4 in the arcade, which is great, and it was in the NASCAR Cafe on City Walk in Orlando, and you could dual wield the Uzis, or well, I did. That's really fun, but the shotgun, nothing beats it. And fair bit of House of the Dead 3 in the arcades. Now, it was one of those really busy arcades. It's in Islands of Adventure beside the Spider-Man ride. Whatever, is it Storm Cafe? I don't know, I forget the name of the place, but there was an arcade in there that had House of the Dead 3. It's probably not there anymore. I'm not even sure if that arcade still exists in that theme park. But I have great memories of playing this game there. Now, probably only ever beat the first chapter or two. I wasn't that good at it at the time, but cocking back the shotgun and shooting just feels so good on an arcade machine. House of the Dead 3 is where my opinion just starts to flip-flop all over the place, because I had a great time playing it. I did. I will always have a great time playing even the worst light gun shooters, because I just love these games. But one, I think the game is more cartoony. There's something about the graphics where I don't know, the models are just a bit more rounded or something along them lines and it gives it just a slightly different feel. Now, it still looks great, and specifically it still runs great, which I will get onto later with House of the Dead Overkill. And I like that the shotgun adds a bit more chaos to the overall gameplay experience. It feels like House of the Dead 1 and 2 are going for a more accuracy-based gameplay loop where, you know, 1 or 2 shots in the head, and that's what you want to do, and the dismemberment is there, and it is really cool. But then in House of the Dead 3, it's like they just went full balls to the wall and said, here, look, just absolutely destroy loads of zombies, just put full clips of shotgun shells into them, and it's gonna feel great, and the dismemberment is top tier. And I even noticed at one point when I was playing it, and this probably is in the other House of the Dead, but I just don't think I ever really realized it, I shot the arm off a zombie, and then he tried to hit me with that arm, but because he didn't have the arm, it didn't deal any damage, and I was like, that is really, really cool. And going through the levels in House of the Dead 3, I like how diverse they are. It's definitely easier than 1 and 2 going through the levels. I don't think there's as many gotcha moments, which I do enjoy. And also a little detail is when you shoot a coin, you can actually shoot that coin multiple times to get more score. And again, it's all just about that very rapid fire, just keep spamming the shoot button. It's less about accuracy. And it just feels really good. It's kind of like in House of the Dead 1 and 2 Remake, they added in the modern scoring mode, where the more bullets you pump into a zombie, the more score you get. And again, it just adds a bit more chaos. And when you have the dismemberment, it just looks really cool. But then that brings me to the boss fights in House of the Dead 3. And I'm not going to do a play-by-play on any of these games, because I think a lot of people do that already, and I think it's just a way to artificially lengthen the length of the videos. And also, I just don't like really doing it. But I just want to talk about the boss fights here, because they are awful. I hate the boss fights in this game. You can go back to the boss fights in this series and say, oh yeah, well obviously they're designed, they've small hit points, they're zipping around the screen, like the gargoyle enemy in House of the Dead 1. He's very difficult, especially in the arcade. And the magician at the end, I believe the final boss called the magician, I forget. But, you know, just very small hit points zipping around the screen. But then you get onto the boss fights in House of the Dead 3, and they honestly kind of ruined the experience. If the boss fights were slightly better, I would probably say that House of the Dead 3 is my favorite. But the boss fights are really that bad. So the first one is this big bruiser. You have to shoot him in the head. And the normal first run of fighting him, pretty easy. He just runs at you, shoot him in the head a couple of times, you get stunned, and you keep doing that. That's totally fine. The problem is they repeat that boss fight in the game again. And when you fight him again, you just have to do the same thing. You have to shoot him in the head to get down his little stagger bar and then deal some damage to him. And when he's running at you, that's fine. But then you get to the moments where he's running between rooms, or he's running behind, I don't know, they look like vats that they would brew something in or whatever they're making. And the window to shoot his head is so ridiculously small that, I just hated it. I really did. I rarely got hit or lost lives or credits during the normal gameplay, because again, I think this one is probably the easier one in that section. But then I lost so many lives and credits to the bosses that I'm like, oh, you're actually kind of improving the problems with arcade games, where obviously there is a fair bit of bullshit in a lot of arcade games, and it felt like there was a linear path of, okay, we're going to stop the gotcha moments, but then you give us these boss fights that are the worst out of the original trilogy and worse than anything in House of the Dead Overkill. And then you get onto the sloth boss, and I mean, it's cool, a giant sloth is an interesting boss, but you have this little circle to shoot him, and he's a good bit of distance away, so it is genuinely that size on your screen, and it moves so quickly, and again, it's just so frustrating. But then when you get onto the tentacle boss, or whatever the plant guy, he's actually not a bad boss. I actually enjoy him, but the problem with it is that when you get onto the boss, I had very few credits, so I've actually died loads on the boss, and I didn't have enough credits to continue the fight, and I don't know, it just kind of sours the experience, because up until that point and through the levels, I was like, yeah, this is really fun, loads of diverse locations, and the alternate routes in this game are presented differently. In House of the Dead 1 or 2, you kind of, I don't know, you had to either shoot something that would open a door, or press a button, or if you save an NPC, you'll go down one path, or if that NPC dies, you'll go down another. Whereas in House of the Dead 3, you're actually just presented with a choice. And I think that works better in an arcade sense, because most people with these arcade games will, I don't know, you'll be on holidays or something, and there'll be an arcade down the road, and you'll go in for an hour, and you will only have a small bit of time to play the game. So at the very least, you get to choose where you're going, you get to even understand that there are alternate routes, because let's be real, most people would play these arcade games and probably not even realize that there are alternate routes. So in an arcade sense, you get to choose them is way better, because then you could do 2 runs and choose different routes and you know exactly what you're doing. But then in a home console sense, where you want to get as much money as you can out of the game, because these games would have been expensive when they came out, having the alternate routes be a bit more obscure probably helped it and gave the game more replayability. So in a home console sense, I think House of the Dead 1 and 2 do it better, but then in an arcade sense, I think House of the Dead 3 does it better. So it's still a good way. Like, at the very least, I can see very clearly the paths that I want to take, but I would have preferred a more sort of obscure approach to doing it. But overall, I just had a great time playing House of the Dead 2 and 3. Yes, they have problems, they're typical arcade games, but the fact that you can beat them in like 45 minutes-ish to an hour, depending on how long the run is, it's in and around that time, it's just great. It's great to just sit down, have a 45-minute play session, enjoy House of the Dead 2 or 3, and then just go on your merry way. Now, the thing is I paid €20 for this game, which is a good price, I think. But I presume back in the day it was, 50, 60 euro, however much it was. I think nowadays it's like, €20 and you get these amazing games you can play. But when you're getting into having to pay 50, 60 euro for a full game that has 2 arcade games in it that you can beat in 2 hours combined, I'm like, that is a pretty interesting proposition. And I'm pretty sure Sega lost the source code to House of the Dead 1, so that's probably why House of the Dead 1 isn't in this collection, but it would have been great to see it if they remade it from the ground up, because again, House of the Dead 1 remake just, I don't know, like you sit down and you play House of the Dead 2 and 3 on the Wii and you were like, these games look fecking fantastic. All they needed to do was up-res them, just put them in 4K and up-res them. It's, 60 FPS, put them on the Switch, fine. But instead, they go with this jelly-looking shit that makes House of the Dead look really bad. Again, House of the Dead 1 and 2 remake, great games to play, terrible games to look at.
Tomorrow morning, I'll have my motherfucking revenge. Papa Caesar will be dead.
If we don't stop this mutant outbreak by tomorrow morning, we'll all be dead.
Because your first visit will be your last. Papa's Palace of Pain. Rated X.
And then that brings us on to House of the Dead Overkill. Now, it says €10. I actually paid €8 for it. That sticker is wrong. And also, look, Nintendo Gold Award, 90%. What the fuck does that mean? I don't know. But straight off the bat, this game is a completely different tone and take and look on the House of the Dead series. Now, certainly isn't bad. It's just different. So it almost seems like they took some inspiration from Left 4 Dead, or they took inspiration from whatever inspired Left 4 Dead, those old B-movie zombie films, because the game starts and it's being narrated in that style, and then when you start up a new chapter, it, flashes the very B-movie text on it, and it's definitely going for something different. And this is, I believe, the first home console House of the Dead game that was built for home consoles, and I think they did an absolutely amazing job at home consoleifying a House of the Dead game, because differences between how you design a game and make a game for home consoles and how you design and make a game for arcade. And I think they kept the spirit of House of the Dead alive while also making it make sense on a home console, and they did an amazing job with it. So we all know what arcade games are like. They are really hard. They're trying to get as much money out of you as possible, and they also have a emphasis on scores, but a different emphasis on scores as some home console games. So I would say House of the Dead Overkill feels almost similar to a Devil May Cry game in how it's presented to you. You rack up combos by killing enemies consecutively and not missing a shot, and that means you get more score. At the end of the levels, you get a ranking. Now, I know in House of the Dead 3, you also get a ranking, but specifically here, you get a ranking, and then you also get money where you can upgrade your weapons, and money is determined by, what your score was, what collectibles you found, what accuracy you had, how many headshots, that sort of stuff. When you see the stats flash up at the end where it's accuracy or headshots or your score, and then you get a ranking, it really reminds me of DMC. Those kind of games that you can see were very heavily inspired by the arcade roots of a lot of these companies and then brought to a home console, and sort of melding home console and arcade sensibilities together to make a really fun experience. And that is exactly what House of the Dead Overkill did. Because when you finish a level and you see those stats, then you go in and you're upgrading your weapon, you're getting increased fire rate or reload speed or damage. It's a very satisfying loop, and the difference between the weapons from the start and the end are night and day. Now, the only thing I would say about the weapons is, like, once you buy the shotgun, there is almost no reason to not use the shotgun over every weapon. The bullet spread is better, so you don't have to be as accurate. It deals a feck load of damage. Eventually you get loads of bullets. You can reload it really quickly. So there's almost no reason not to use it. So once I got the shotgun, I basically never use the pistol. Whenever somebody makes a video on House of the Dead Overkill, it's all about the story and the presentation and the character who says fuck all the time. And, you know, it is cool and it's entertaining and it's stupid and it's cheesy and it's funny. Throw so many more words out there. But what I love so much about it is the diversity in the levels. I think there is something cool about House of the Dead 1 where you're essentially just in the House of the Dead and it's one sort of contained location, and that is cool. But as the series goes on, the locations get more and more diverse, and Overkill has the best of the bunch. Now, I haven't played House of the Dead 4 in ages, so I don't know, but out of the ones that I've played, where you start off and you're in a big house, you know, very House of the Dead-ish, but then there's a carnival level where there's clowns everywhere, or the train level is fantastic. It takes place completely on a train. You're going from carriage to carriage and going up and down, and it's really claustrophobic. And then you obviously have the very typical lab section, and then there's a prison, which reminds me of Touch the Dead or Touch of the Dead. I forget exactly what it's called on the DS. It was one of my favorite DS games back in the day. It was a light gun shooter on the DS, and you used a stylus to shoot. What a game. It's not that great anymore, I don't think, but it's just a cool thing to have on a DS. Just the diverse locations that I think make this game stand out more. Yes, obviously when people make videos on House of the Dead Overkill, and I don't want to belabor this point because everybody talks about it's the game that says fuck the most, and you know, it's really funny, and it is. It's genuinely extremely entertaining as a game, and the cutscenes are funny, and just little chirps that the characters say when you shoot people. It is genuinely very entertaining, and it's super cheesy. But what I think I will take away from House of the Dead Overkill is that it really is a great way to turn an arcade game into a home console game. It's a longer game. I believe a full playthrough is in and around the 2.5 hour mark. I don't have my full playthrough on the CRT recorder, so I don't actually know. But I think the first like 3/5 of the game was like 1 hour and 15. And then I think I had 3 more chapters after that or whatever. So it's probably in and around 2 to 2.5 hours, which obviously is double the length of any of the other House of the Dead games. And that was a line that they had to straddle, because with a lot of these arcade games, you don't want them to be too long. If this game, let's say this game is around 2.5 hours, if it was 3.5, 4 hours, then you're getting into a game where I would probably say, look, this is probably getting a bit too long. I think the best of these arcadey games understand that they are best when they are a tight experience. When you think of playing a Devil May Cry game or a Bayonetta game, they are no longer than, what, 8-10 hours. Even the Resident Evil games, they are short and they're built to have multiple playthroughs with bonuses for beating it in under a certain amount of time and things like that. So I think they fully understood that, and they made it just longer so that it made sense for it to be a home console game, but also not long enough where you're just like, okay, I'm kind of done with this, because I love light gun shooters, but you can only play them for so long before you're like, all right, I'll just play a normal game now. And that's just the way with these games that just control differently, and that's the same for me. It's the same with VR games. You can only play them for so long. Same with racing games with steering wheels. I love playing racing games with steering wheels, but again, you can only play them for so long until you just want to play a normal game on a normal controller. But the House of the Dead series is fantastic, and the Wii is realistically the best and most accessible way to play them. Yes, you can play House of the Dead 1 and 2 on the Switch or the Wii or on the PC or wherever, and they work fine, but they're very ugly. But yeah, I'm glad I played these. I'm in a really, really big light gun mood. So I might move on to Time Crisis next. I still have a couple of more Wii light gun games, like the Resident Evil Dark Side and Umbrella Chronicles. I have Ghost Squad, which is another Sega light gun shooter that I actually have a lot of experience with in the arcade. That game is great. I do remember loving it. And yeah, light gun games are just such a unique experience, and they're one of sort of the tentpoles in different ways to experience games that a lot of people have extremely fond memories of. And I think part of it is the fact that a lot of them are in arcades. Say there's a fair few people that realistically only ever played them in a home console sense, but the Wii is such a great place to play. The only problem with House of the Dead Overkill on the Wii, frame rate isn't great. It freezes fairly often, but the fact that I could actually beat it and I enjoyed it as much as I did with the frame rate being that bad, it's a pretty good sign. There's also a lot of motion blur, which I don't like. Apart from that though, it's a really good game. It is on the PS3 with PS Move, so that's probably the better way to play it. I also think they did like a direct, I think they added more content onto the PS3 version. So it probably runs way smoother. It probably runs at 720 or 1080p as opposed to whatever it is on the Wii. But I was playing it on the CRT anyway. So thank you everybody for watching. I just rambled for, if you want a bit of inside baseball, we'll see how much I cut this down. I rambled for 37 minutes about Three Houses of the Dead game. So there you go. You'll see how much I cut this down and how much rambling I cut out of it. But thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye.